looks like it stopped. Mira, it hasn't gone back to it yet. Let me see. Let me go to your page. Alright, so now it's going back.
All right, guys. So let us know if you can hear us.
There we go. That was my fault, guys.
That's what I get for trying to give you a mic. Start over.
Yep.
Today we're going to be talking about relationships and a sure way to find your spouse. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. We actually have a little bit of a different dynamic today. We're going to be watching some videos from Vody and a few interviews from people that get interviewed on the street so we can give our feedback on this as well. But before we start, we always like to start with an anime example just because we're nerds like that.
Always. 100%. It's never going to change.
Exactly. And our wives love us for it.
Love is a very strong word, my friend.
But the first thing that I wanted to share with you guys about love and in anime and a lot of what we see is that typically the hero, he's about his business, he's training, saving the world, sailing and whatnot, so he has no time for relationships. So actually what you see is more of them being pursued by the love interest in some way. And we see that with Goku when he's a kid. You know, this girl who eventually becomes his wife, she asks him to marry him. He thinks it's food and he agrees when he's like 12 years old.
Yeah.
And then she comes back, you know, a time skip happens, you know, a few years have passed and she's trying to fight him because he made a promise and he didn't know what he was actually promising. And eventually he's like, oh, well, if I promise, then I'm gonna be a man of my word, and they end up getting married. And that's how we end up with Goku never kissing her. I'm sure that I gotta go back to see, because I think in the anime they show when they actually get
yeah, they show when they get married and
stuff. Do they show a kiss? Do you remember?
It's been a while since I've gone back to Dragon Ball. It's been a bit. I'm not sure.
Maybe not. But a similar situation we see with Luffy. He wants to be king of the pirates, and all we see throughout the anime is him in the pursuit and, you know, fighting a bunch of people and, you know, always looking after his friends. And ultimately, after Luffy, she professes her love for him. Meanwhile, Luffy is oblivious and he has nothing to do. He wants nothing to do with her from a romantic perspective. Now, there's a couple of things that, you know, we can draw from this, especially from the anime side, and that is that, you know, oftentimes, like, these characters, I don't think the man put in the effort really required to find that wife. I think that a lot of the times it's just, hey, I've seen it on TV or I've seen my friends go out with somebody. That's probably good, and like that's as far as it goes. That's as much forethought as a lot of people put into it, versus like actually preparing themselves to be the husband that this person that they're interested actually deserves.
I actually disagree with you a little bit, Manny, because think about it. There's a lot of people. Yeah,
we're about to get into a fight here live.
I know, right? No, dude, I mean, think about it. What's popular? What is it that people like? And then obviously guys are going to see that. They're going to try to pursue and become the thing that are attracting the type of women that they like.
But are men actually, like, somebody that's pursuing a girl besides the, you know, trying to get some game and stuff like that, are they actually thinking about preparing themselves to be the husband?
Oh, no, not at all.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, okay, preparing themselves to be the husband that person deserves at the end of the day. Because, like, remember, ultimately, like, as Christian men, we shouldn't be about just dating for dating, right?
Nope.
We're looking for that person that's gonna be our partner for life. So,
I mean, no, yeah, you're right. I feel like a lot of men now, we just focus too much on just getting enough or getting to the point where, you know, we can get to second or third base, but it's never like the long-term game.
Whoa, second, third base, what you talking about?
Dude, bro? It's the truth, man. I mean, that's the reality of the dating world right now.
Do we want to define what second and third base is? I'm sure it's changed since my day.
I don't know, dude.
But first, what I have is a video from our buddy Vody Bakum, and he actually does not believe that as a Christian you should be dating, period. So I want to share this video with you guys, and I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, Vody is like the extreme Christian version of Dave Ramsey, if you think about it.
I could see that. I could see that a little bit. All right, so let's get this ready. Where are you, YouTube?
No, that's the wrong one. There you go.
There we go. All right. So here we go. Our boy Vody Bakum. By the way, let us know if the video is good enough. Not the video, sorry, the audio. So let's see.
On dating.
Scriptural principles on dating. There are none.
Okay.
Dating is not a practice acknowledged by the scriptures. Dating is a modern American practice that is foreign to the biblical idea or concept. Modern American dating is glorified divorce practice. It's learning how to give yourself away to people repeatedly and then take it back. It's very unhealthy from my perspective. I think people who are not ready to be married, who put themselves in dating situations, are like people who go shopping without any money. Either you're going to leave frustrated or you're going to take something that doesn't belong to you. So my encouragement is that people need to start thinking about those kinds of things only when they are at a place where they are ready to be married. If you're not at a place where you're ready to be married, then you don't need to be defrauding anybody. And when you are at that place, then you need to have that in the forefront. Not, we're just going to kick it and maybe later on if something, whatever. No, you need to have that in the forefront with that kind of mindset and investigation and propriety and honesty and all of that, up front when you're entering into relationships with people of the opposite sex. But the idea that you would just sort of casually give yourself away to multiple people, that's just not healthy, and it's not something that you would find anywhere in Scripture.
So when you find your
So, what do you think?
Like I said, the church version of Dave Ramsey. I mean, it's interesting, right? You don't really hear a lot of people say where it's like, no, you shouldn't be dating. It's always like, prepare yourself. Don't put yourself in bad situations. So he goes, completely off the cuff and is just like, yeah, no dating. It's going back to the old days where it's just like, you court to marry and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm conflicted on this, to be honest, because it's twofold for me, right? Because I think dating did teach me some things about myself that God used in order to prep me for marriage and getting me ready for that next stage. At the same time, I see the wastefulness and the unnecessary strife and sadness and anger that comes from dating. So I'm not sure whether, I mean, biblically he's right. There isn't a pattern for dating like as we see it today in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, but biblically, what we would see is like, your dad would have gone to speak to another family and then would have just hooked you up right then and there, and then you would have been married at like 15, 16, right? Like when we look at like the biblical way of what marriage used to work like, it was just that. You would normally marry into another family with more power to try and grow the strength of your own family, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he might be, he's speaking to like teenagers in a school. I think, I don't know if you're talking about like an older Christian, that maybe has a little bit of their their act together,
Yeah.
then they might be at a stage where they're quote unquote either dating or courting, getting to know the person. But how about I mean, you dealt with like we both dealt with youth, but you dealt with like the younger youth.
Yeah.
When you guys were teaching and doing all that, was dating something that you guys addressed, or how did you kind of work through that?
So it's interesting because it wasn't really like on the forefront of a lot of stuff we did. More of just staying pure, not having relations outside of marriage and stuff like that. But it was never like a never date or anything like that. It was always like be prepared, know who you are in Christ first, because this goes back to like our old life that we did last time. It's just the whole idea of understanding your identity, understanding who you are, to then be able to enter into a relationship, right? It's like, it's like walking into a house with no walls in it. It's just all wood studs and stuff and you're trying to sleep in the house. You're going to freeze because the house isn't ready yet for you.
What is the usefulness, and I'll throw it out in the chat too, like what is the usefulness of dating for people that are this young, right? High school age. Like what is dating going to, for example, think about my son, like what is dating at a high school age where he hasn't even really had a job, not much responsibility? Like what is that really gonna teach him outside of him trying to do what other kids are doing his own age?
Bro, straight up trouble. Straight up trouble. I remember wanting to date and a lot of the dumb stuff that I've done in high school in getting to know people and just thinking I was ready when I wasn't. My God, it's nothing but trouble. I mean, I don't really truly see a benefit, like, to be prepared for something that you're not necessarily ready for.
But how about like getting your game up? You know what I mean?
Bro,
like dating. That's how you develop little game.
I mean, first and foremost, at least with our boys, I know they're not gonna have to worry too much about that because they got us.
Oh yeah, you got some game.
I mean, I'm married with one kid, right? So I mean, it's gotta say something. But I don't know, man. It's like, again, it's that whole thing of like trying to get ready for stuff that they're not even should be in that stage of yet. Like I'm thinking about like my son, if he's 14, 15, like.
And he tells you, Daddy, I'm interested in this girl and I want to date her. What would you date? Number one, I guess in your mind, would you be willing to let him date, or are you gonna be like, that's not happening?
I mean, I'm not really gonna be willing to let him date, but I'm gonna ask him, all right, so what's the purpose? Like, why do you want to date her? What is it about her that you like? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna take? Like, I lay it out on there, bro. Like, all right, how are you gonna pay for dates? Like, you're gonna be borrowing mommy and daddy's money all the time? Like, what are you gonna do, man? I hate to say it, but I kind of make him feel like a loser. Like, all right, dude, like, you're trying to do all this, man. It's like how they say in Spanish, right? Like, dude, you don't even know how to wipe your own butt yet, and you're trying to worry about dating somebody else.
Well, that reminds me of, somebody that we know that, I had a conversation with him at church. He's around 15, 16, and, he wants to date. He wants somebody in his life. And when I asked him, why he wanted to date, he just basically told me that he didn't want to be lonely. Like, he wanted somebody around him. And, if we really think about the ultimate path for a man and a woman, which is marriage, like, that's not even a good reason. But the thing is like, I also think about the other end where, okay, let's see, we talk to our boys and we're like, hey, like, you shouldn't be dating it. This is not the time. This is the time for you to be prepping, for you to be learning how to be a man. Now, they're going to have external influences where they're going to be seeing 100%. This in movies and in other places. Now, will us restricting them from dating now push them to do it behind our backs?
So this is a thing with it, right? As weird as it sounds, correct exposure early enough, I think, is beneficial. So I'd rather prefer that my son gets the dating conversation from me other than from a video game or from other friends first. Talk to him at an early age and be like, hey, well, this is what dating looks like, and this is what it does, and this is, what your parents did. But, like,
are you talking to him, like, prepping him for dating or not?
Well, more of, like, prepping him so he understands what's going to be the outcome of it, right? Like, what happens a lot of times? We're just going to do stuff
that we shouldn't be doing.
We shouldn't be doing, or we just jump into things that we don't know about ahead of time, right? And so it's like, for me, it's more of like, well, I want you to understand what this entails and what really comes out of it. And it's like even like how Masi said in the chat, right? That mentality of dating that young just not to be lonely, that's showing there's something deeper inside of that. And not even in that age too, because we gotta think about like what do we say also to the older people? You know, what about those in their early 20s or from 20s up that are single right now? Like what do we say to them too?
Yo, get married, bro. What are you waiting for?
Nah, dude. Yeah, listen, man. There's some places, man, where the pick of the litter isn't the best. You know, we got to be honest with that.
So we have here from Mabel that says, what's the right age to start dating or getting to know someone? When do you know you are ready to date? Before we get to that, I think that I love the way that he explained that, though, because I have never heard that before. But it's like going, you know, what do we say? Going to dating is like going to the market without any money. Like you're either going to what was it? You're either gonna get something on credit or you're gonna take something that doesn't belong to you.
Hans is funny. He's like, "Am I a liar?" He did say earlier, "Is dating Vodi's version of all borrowed credit is bad credit?"
But I think about that, and that's so true because ultimately, especially when you have a high school sweethearts too that end up getting married. That's another thing.
I actually know of a couple.
But I mean, I guess like, you know, you got to think about like Adam and Eve, right? Like there was an intent for what God wanted, and He still had grace, even when they messed up. So I think that, yeah, the high school sweetheart stuff happens, but is that God just having grace, and that's not what's intended? So the question is like, what is an age, or how do you know that you should start dating? I mean, if we're looking at a context of marriage, you should be on your way or close to being able to provide for, at least as a man, provide for your wife, or that wife to be, or be like, for I think Vodi though, he got married while he was still in college.
Yeah, no,
so
he was like in his first or second year.
Yeah, and I mean they got married and they made it work. So I think it's like it's a part maturity, part, you know, where are you in your current, you know, path in life when it comes to your career and where you're going.
And what do you want, right? Do you want the $100,000 wedding too? Like, if that's what you want, that's gonna hold you off for a long time. Like, this is the other side of the wedding thing that we have to take a look and consider. Like, yes, the celebrations that we would see back in the day were very different, and it was like a week long. So you still needed to have money for that. We see it when Jesus performs a miracle, you know, turning the water into a wine. That was a week long celebration. But like, even so much for us now, right? Like, how many of us are dealing with super expensive rent? Maybe some of us made a bad decision and got into a car that we couldn't afford. And now we got that monthly payment, plus school loans starting back up, to then include, all right, now let me try and entertain somebody and go out with them and stuff like that. Like, it gets ugly real quick.
It gets expensive. Well, that's actually another thing, because you have to find that balance. Because on the other end, like, for example, for a woman, you know, their parents will push them, don't get married until you have a degree, right? Until you finish your schooling. Yeah. And that takes you up to 22, 23.
Well, it depends
or
on the degree.
even more if you're getting for a master's, 25. If it's
doctor,
beyond that,
be there in the 30s.
you know, now your eggs are drying up. You know what I mean? Like, you're at 30 and you're like, you know, still like trying to like pursue stuff before you get married. You know, like, I think that I think wise counsel around you, I think, is very important. But at the same time, I think, and I'm speaking from the man's perspective, I think once you're ready, or you're ready to take on the responsibility of taking care of somebody else, that's when you should start really pursuing somebody to date.
And real quick with that, because I know what Manny's saying, it's very true, but Manny's also not saying that you as a man have to be the one to provide for everything. All right?
Everything.
That's
You
not,
provide for everything.
That's not what he's saying.
What are you talking about?
Hey, if you can eventually get to that point, that's cool.
What do you mean provide for everything?
Like, you can pay your rent, you can pay.
I mean, you gotta
food.
pay your rent though.
I know, but I'm just saying in the sense, like, because like, look at me, for example, when my wife and I first got married, you know, she was helping out. I wasn't making enough money where I could pay for everything by myself.
Oh,
so
I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
You get
yeah,
what
well,
I mean?
I mean, I think that, so in the economy that we live in today, right, unfortunately, you have to have a 2 household income for the most part. Yeah. However, as the man, you need to understand that ultimately, if stuff goes down, you're the one that has to be responsible. I'm not saying that she cannot help out or anything like that. But I think that mentally you have to be prepared. Like, dude, if stuff hits the fan and my wife can't work, like, am I still gonna be able to provide? Am I gonna be ready to work 2 jobs in order to make sure that we have a roof over our heads?
Yo,
Like,
I'm ready to sign up for Uber Eats, bro. I'll get it popping, man. I don't care. I'm ready for it. And that's really more of the thing that we need to talk about, right? Like, here's the biggest thing with me. Me as a married man right now, I thank God that we've been able to provide, our jobs allow us to pay for everything. But if something happens where my wife can't work, best believe, bro, I'm going to sell my PS5. I'm going to sell my Switch. If I got to, do Uber and Lyft.
Car.
I mean, I'm not really emotionally attached to that car.
Son.
So.
I'm just kidding.
But, yo, Patrick, but it's just getting to that point where, you're willing to do whatever you can and want. And that's really what Manny's talking about. Being able to put yourself in that perspective of, it's like, I'm going to sacrifice everything that I enjoy, want, and do to make sure that everything's going to be taken care of.
Yo, let me show you this clip that I found online that I thought was pretty interesting. I'm assuming this guy is Christian. But let me see if I can.
Dude, you never know with some of these, man.
All right, let's take a look. Let me transfer that over.
I'm 33.
Are you a virgin?
Yes.
Why is it that you chose to wait?
When I was really young and I had crushes on other girls and they may have had a crush on me and then maybe they developed a crush on somebody else, I was like, oh, well, is she really mine? And now that she's had, a relationship with somebody else or a crush on somebody else or she kissed somebody else. And I thought there's got to be some level of physical intimacy that is supposed to be just between me and my eternal partner. When I first learned what sex was, I was like, this is it. This is what a man and woman who are committed to each other in marriage should do exclusively.
But are you also looking for a virgin woman?
No, that's a good question. For me, I think that's right for me, and I want to be able to provide that commitment to my wife. I understand that's unrealistic in today's society, so I'd be open to dating someone who is not also a virgin.
Do you think that women who have already had previous sexual partners are going to be as attracted to you knowing that you're a virgin?
I'm not sure, and sometimes I wonder if that's the reason why I'm still single.
What's your age?
Bro, I looked at some of the comments, and they were like railing on this dude. Some women were like, well, I'm not down to be teaching. Like, they would rather have a dude that has been like sleeping around and been doing stuff. I was kind of like, geez, like this is where we're at in our society, where like a dude saving himself for marriage is not like valued in any way.
Well, again, man, what we're talking about is self-gratification. That's what it is at the end of the day. Like, what is it that I can pull out of this relationship that I feel satisfied? That's what we're talking about. And it's interesting because I've seen comments on other type of videos too, where it's like, on the reverse role for men, it's like, women don't owe men anything, and vice versa, men don't owe anything to women. So it's really about what is the perspective. Like, this is really what we're trying to get to, is what is the mindset going into the whole dating sphere? What are you trying to get out of the whole dating thing? And if it's really just the aspect, well, I need to have my needs fulfilled, I need to not be lonely, I need to, be sexually gratified or anything like that, then you're entering into this in the complete wrong way.
Yeah, I think at that point, like, what are you really searching for, right? Is it to edify God in some way or just edify yourself,
And what's really sad is that we use God as a scapegoat for this, but we're still really just trying to self-gratify ourselves, man. Like, there's some, and it's funny, I've seen some skits before of like Christian dudes that are looking for a specific type of Christian girl, and vice versa, where it's like them praying and, God, send me the right man, send me the right woman, and then God's like, well, I already did, and you said no to them, so like, what do you want? And then they continue praying, and God's like, well, you had the chance and you let it slip up past you. So
I think Patrick is saying here, this is our society now, and we promote sex more than we promote commitment.
100%.
That is true. I think, like, even this dude, like, this man is literally committed to his future wife, whoever that's going to be, and he wants to offer the best part of himself, and he's getting clowned on in the comments because of it. I mean, some people were like, oh, is this dude gay? Like, you know what I mean? Like, even his manhood is being questioned because he's chosen to not sleep around and save that part of himself and his life for the woman that God has for him. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is.
And I wanted to share with you guys one verse, because I think that, we've talked a lot about dating and everything else, and Proverbs 18:22 says, "The man who finds a wife finds a treasure, and he receives favor from the Lord." So, and some translations say, "A man who finds a good wife finds and receives blessings from the Lord." And I think that's so crucial and pivotal, because, dude, man, like, if we're really thinking about marriage and you're thinking about, like, this is going to be the person that I'm going to marry for the rest of my life, and that's the perspective that you're having, like, you should really have some values in place. And I mean, I get where, that skit is coming from, but I think that a lot of the times the list that we have is more superficial than anything else. Like, we're not
100%.
looking for the characteristics that God wants for a woman that we also should be looking for,
And vice versa. I mean, it's funny because there's this Dominican pastor that he actually did a sermon about this, and he's like, all right, well, we got these dudes saying that they're these prayer warriors and they're looking for the specific type of woman, but he's like, but you can't maintain your girl. You can't take her out to go get a hamburger, a cheeseburger, and stuff like that. So he's like, so why are you being so superficial when you can't even take care of the type of person you're looking for? And Hans, this is 2023 right now. You can't test drive a car anymore before you buy it, dude. You got people buying cars before they can even test drive it. That's where the car market is right now.
Listen, bro, sometimes, love.
Nope.
No. Love just wants to be taken on a first class airplane, bro.
Have you seen that video? I'm surprised you don't have that video up.
What?
Oh, we should do. Actually, that'd be on a separate channel. We can do that. The video about the girl that was dating the other dude, and he took her to the Cheesecake Factory, and she was all pissed about it.
I think I've seen something floating around.
Man, yeah, but that'll be for a different day. That'd be kind of funny though if we look at expectations in dating. But again, self gratification versus God's purpose, two completely different things, and you will find it in the church.
But I want to share a couple of verses that can show us a little bit about what we should be looking for in a woman. And here it says, did I get the right one?
Is it the one where a nagging wife is like dripping water on a roof?
No.
See, Patrick knows what I'm talking about. He saw that video, man. That was crazy.
I've seen it floating around. I haven't seen the entire thing, but I think she was pissed. She was saying kind of like she was worth more, right?
Yeah,
than the
dude,
Cheesecake Factory.
But there's a second part to it.
Meanwhile, my wife the other day tells me, like, we haven't gone to the Cheesecake Factory in a while. We should go. That was like we actually went like on a date to the Cheesecake Factory way back when.
But the funny thing is that there's a part 2 of it where they get together with some other dude, and it's like them trying to break it down. And it's just like, man, it just hurt to watch. It really did.
But part of the intent for this live stream, what I wanted to do is really give the guys some things that they can use to finding, that proper wife that God would have you. And I think that in order to do that, you have to look at what God has set up for marriage.
Yep.
And then kind of reverse engineer so you can get to that place. And obviously we got to go to Ephesians, right? And it says, for wives, this means submit to your husbands. Let me go one verse back because I think it might be incomplete here. And it says, And furthermore, submit to one another out of reverence to Christ. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as the Lord. For husband, it is the head of his wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He is the Savior of his body, the church. As the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in everything. And I think that still today, submitting has a bad connotation, and I think that you should be looking for a submissive woman when it comes to looking for your future mate, because ultimately, if God is calling you to be the head of the household, you're not going to be able to do that if she's not willing to follow your lead, right? Because ultimately, you're not going to beat her down into submission, right? Like, that's not how that works. Like, she has to be willing to take on that submissive role.
But to be submissive, just to give a little bit of context on that too, you have to be a guy or a man worth submitting to.
Right, and I think that to clarify what submission is really willing to follow your husband's lead.
Exactly.
That's what that really means. It's not like you're weaker or that
This
you
ain't
don't have
that
a
go make me a
say.
sandwich in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's
That
none
ain't
of
that.
that. It really means that you respect the order that God has ordained when it comes to marriage, and that you are willing to follow your husband's lead. Now, at the same time, husbands, right, you guys that are looking for a woman, you have to be somebody worthy of being followed. If you're not, then your wife has all the right to call you out on, especially when using scripture.
But what does that actually look like today in 2023, going into 24? Like, are we saying that the guy just needs to make all the money and he's good? Are we saying that the guy just needs to take care of himself physically and he's good? Like, what would you say off of all the Bible reading you've done right now in today's age would be a man that is worth following?
Dude, we had a man's group not too long ago, and I got a little what do you call this? Like a little.
Man, he's very aggressive, guys.
I'm not aggressive, but I got a little flack for this. And part of what I was saying, and maybe I didn't explain myself properly. I probably won't even today, and you guys will be like, "What is this guy talking about?" Like for me, being the leader of my home, that means that I'm setting the example in every single situation, every single aspect of our lives, right? When it comes to the physical, like I'm doing my part so that my wife can have an example. Like when it comes to career, if my wife is working and she's doing her career stuff and whatnot, like I'm setting the example. If there needs to be sacrifice, like I'm the one that's the first one in front sacrificing. In all of the aspects of our lives, I am the one that's taking the burden of going first and showing that example. And that's something that I take on myself. Now, I think that some of the guys were like, well, you're not going to be perfect. It's like, and for me, it's like, yeah, I know I'm not perfect, and you're not always going to do it perfectly. But for me, I feel like I should be willing, able, and doing and setting that example first.
So let me translate what you just said over then, because I think it's really
You
good.
gotta-
We gotta go a little bit deeper.
translate?
We
You
gotta
gotta
go a
translate?
little bit deeper.
All right, translate for me.
So this is what this means, right? So for example, if I know that there are things that need to be taken care of in the house, I should probably take care of that instead of jumping on my PS5 and playing some games, right? Like there's a time and a place for everything, right? Now, I am not one of those that says that video games is of the devil. I am not. I am a huge gamer. But in my time of being married, I have learned that I need to do more of the things that take care of my home, make sure that my house is not falling apart, make sure that my family is eating, to then, if I have the time, be able to enjoy the things that I like to do. In the same way, kind of like what you're saying about setting the example. Part of setting that example is being the one willing to make the sacrifice. So maybe I have to be the one to actually go off and wake up earlier than everybody else to make sure things are done. I'm the one that has to go out late at night and take out the trash. Like things that we think are really silly and dumb, right? But like
Doing the laundry.
Maybe sometimes we have to help out with the laundry, right?
I don't do the laundry.
Well, I mean, my gift is not cooking. My gift is not cooking. So if I can help prepare stuff, I'll do that. But like even with the simple thing of like, if I see that my wife is in danger, or maybe your girlfriend's in danger, you're gonna be the one to jump up in front for the defense. If somebody's breaking into my house, I'm gonna be the one getting out of the bed, not my wife. Like this is really what we're talking about. Practical things of what it looks like. If you're trying to impress a girl,
Well, I just remembered. I don't even know why it mentions, but also in the spiritual sense, because we're talking a lot about like circular, but also in the spiritual sense, like I gotta be in my word. I gotta be active in my church. I gotta be setting that example as well. And to be honest, am I always successful on it? No. Like I think back a couple of years ago, my wife was like, man, I really I'm feeling like God is calling me to take this seminary course, and she was the one that pulled me into it, and I'm like, oh snap! Like I actually felt a little bit ashamed because I'm like, dang, like I should be doing that work, But that's part of like having that godly woman that like she came through. I mean, we all ended up
Yeah, your wife pulled
taking
all
it.
of
Yeah,
us
she
in.
pulled everybody in, and we all like went in and took these classes. Like that's what I mean. Like you don't have to be perfect, but I think that overall, I think your mindset should be that
Yes.
you're leading the charge on a lot of these things.
Now, guys, we're not saying you have to go get a seminary degree.
Yeah.
Manny and I do not have seminary degrees. We just enjoy studying the Bible and doing stuff like this. But if the only Bible verse you have memorized is Jesus wept,
Nah.
and you don't even know where that is in the book of John,
3:16, bro.
Yeah, but dude, like even then, like not a lot of people even know where in John Jesus wept is, right? John 3:16,
yeah.
we got that. But if that's the only two verses you got memorized, we got to do a little bit more work, right? Like if we're talking about a God who is going to change our inmost nature, and we don't fully understand him, it's like how does that work? You're entering into a battle ill-equipped.
Facts. How about
And now I'm not saying you have to have everything memorized, but there comes a point where you should be able to start picking up on references and stuff like that. This is not a beat down or a bash down.
and this
but
song
it's-
is definitely laying down the hammer. Right?
Dude, I'm not. It could be a lot worse.
They
But
they don't let him do it at church, so he's
Yeah.
doing it here.
No, but I think it is important that we realize, like, as time goes on, as a child grows, they mature. So as we grow in Christ, we also mature and we get off the milk, right? We get off of just the gospel and we start studying other things, and we can understand biblical references. Like even on Instagram and on Instagram mainly, like I'll find these videos. It's like Bible quizzes, and I send them to my wife, and we're just like, hey, do you know the answer to this? Do you know the answer to this? And we kind of like quiz each other on stuff, and it's like that's been a big push even for us.
Yeah, I think part of it is always offering opportunities in your marriage and in your household for getting closer to God. Now, speaking of God and relationships and marriage, there's a lot of people that are out there dating people that they're unequally yoked with, people that are not Christians. And I think that if there's anything that you could take from all this is like, don't do that whole missionary dating nonsense. Like,
Bro,
that
what's
does
unequally
not-
yoked?
That does not work.
What's unequally yoked? Before you even get into missionary dating, what is unequally yoked?
This, bro. It's this right there. It's this
So
right there.
so if I'm taller than the girl, then I'm straight. I'm good.
As long as you guys are both the same height, you're good. But according to the unequally yoked, what we're talking about is like, when you have what are they? When you have two, is it bulls, right? Cattle. When you have two cattle and
it's
they're
two bulls.
pushing.
It's two bulls.
It's
and
two
they have
bulls.
a yoke on them.
When you have one that is not as strong as the other, what happens is that they start going in circles because one is pushing more than the other, and since the other one's weaker, then they're ending up going in a circle. And the point is that you want to be going straight. You want to be going straight to God. So now, if you meet somebody, if you're trying to go after people that are not Christian, then that's what you're doing. You're doing this circular thing that's gonna not get you closer to God at all. In fact, it's probably gonna take you away from God.
I'm gonna save you guys a lot of money right now in case if you're thinking about buying the Tony Robbins books or training courses and all those other people. This is essentially part of what they're saying. If you're hanging out with people that are gonna drag you down, they're gonna drag you down. If you hang out with people that are gonna help
Bad
build you
company
up,
corrupts good character.
exactly, they're gonna build you up, and that's what Manny's really talking about. I mean, he's from the Dominican Republic, so he's used to the farming and stuff like that.
But I can change her, bro. I can bring her to Christ.
Listen, bro. I've met some dudes with some real good riz, and they have not been able to change a girl. All right,
Dude, I've seen tragic stories of women that have done the whole
I'll change him.
I'll change him, I'll date him, and it's ended up in breakups, ended up in divorces. And that's the thing, like, for a Christian woman, a godly woman, guys, they should be looking for a mature, godly man, which means that translates to you yourself have to be a mature, godly man in order to be able to attract the
Yep.
women that God is calling you to attract.
Yep.
Which means getting into your word, which means getting involved in your church, which means sharpening up them leadership skills, which means, I'm sorry, not being broke. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be rich, but you gotta like have a job, have some like forethought into where you're gonna be going, where you want to see your family.
Do
and
you
where,
have
like,
projection?
yeah, do you have some type of projection? Are you going somewhere? And again, look, I'm not saying that you have to be making six figures and you got to be well off, but what I'm saying is that you shouldn't be in stupid debt. Like, you shouldn't be buying a car that you can afford. You shouldn't be living in a place you can afford. You should be saving and making sure that you have enough of a buffer so when God brings that marriage over to you, that money is not a source for problems. Like, what is it? 50 what's the number one cause of divorce in the United States is money. I mean, sometimes it's like unrealistic expectations, especially when you marry somebody that's not Christian. But, you know, you want to mitigate the risk and the hurt that can come into your marriage. And money is one of the things that I think you can definitely mitigate.
I think with most things, I think right now, like, the divorce rate's like 55%. Something ridiculous like that.
What was that?
The divorce rate is like 55%. And it's like...
It's low for Christians, though.
It is lower for Christians. But it's just insane when you look at that. And so it's like, even with like the whole, like how Manny said, right? Like, so just so you guys know, I am a huge car guy. That is my field of work in the automotive. And I take a look at all this stuff. The amount of debt currently right now in the market is crazy. And when you see people paying $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a month for cars, and listen, I am not necessarily against financing cars, but there's different methods. There's a 20-40-10 rule. 20% down.
Lay down, Andre.
This is the best way to finance a car without really screwing yourself over. 20% down, run it for 4 years, and the car cannot be worth more than, the car has to be 10% of your yearly income. Anything more than that, you're going to be upside down. Now, if you guys want to hear about that type of stuff, you know, we can talk about that on a later day. But
and this one's coming up with his own invest in cars channel.
Oh no, I watch a lot of it, man, and it's like I'm a big car guy. Like, I love fast things.
By the way, this is my wife's cup.
But it's
in case
like,
y'all wondering,
it's like, you know, just because you can afford the monthly payments does not mean you can afford the car. So here's what happens, right? Take a look at like the city where we live. You know, 2 bedrooms, like $2,000 a month right now. Add on top of that a $700 car payment, not including insurance. Like, so we're talking about you need to be able to be making like 130, 140K for like a brand new Honda Accord with all how expensive life is right now.
Oh, just save for it, man. Just save for it.
I mean, you could.
You can afford it.
You could too, but it's like just to think about, like, if we live the way that society wants us to live, you need to be making well over 6 figures for a basic car. It's nuts.
No, 100%. Now I want to share with you guys before we end here a few different verses when it comes to a godly wife. So it says, Proverbs 31:10, a wife of noble character who can find? She is worth more than rubies. Proverbs 31:26, she speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction is on her tongue. Ephesians, we already touched on it. Wives, submit to your husbands, commitment and loyalty. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where should I go? Like, Ruth was committed to, what's his name? Boaz. Yeah, that's you should name your next kid Boaz.
Dude, that'll be his middle name.
But, you know, and it says here in Proverbs 14:1, the wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands the foolish one tears hers down. So, like, all of these characteristics of what a woman should be, a godly woman, are in the Bible. Like, this is why you got to get into your word so that you know what a godly woman is according to Scripture, according to God, so that when you're out there meeting women, you can be like, no, this one doesn't cut it. This one doesn't meet these standards, and not the standards that society has put in place, but the standards that God has put in place to safeguard us from making a terrible decision.
And with that, when you study the Bible, you also get to realize, too, that the men that are writing this are already prepared and ready, right? These aren't, you know, a bunch of losers just saying, well, my wife needs to submit, but this is like legit kings and princes. You know, dudes that are set and at least ready, prepared, they're saying all of this type of stuff. Just little FYI. You know, you can't really choose or be picky when you yourself ain't the catch yet.
Exactly. So one last video and then one final comment, and I think we'll be closing for tonight, guys. But check this out. see, got the desktop on.
Challenging thing about dating as a 22-year-old woman.
Finding someone to date. Everyone's just like in their own thing, and like no one's really looking for relationships, I feel like, or at least the guys that I've met.
So how would you describe the guys that you've met?
Well, I'll give you an example. So there was this one guy I met, and he was gonna take me out on a date, and I said, okay, great. And he texted me and he goes, okay, meet at my apartment at 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, no, that's not a date. You see, that's not what I want.
You don't think that maybe in the man's mind, he's like, okay, let's do that first, and then we could do something else after?
No, but that doesn't make me a respectable woman. And I want to be respectable. So, like, you have to take me out and spend money and invest on me, and then you can get the benefits.
So you're not a respectable woman if you pull up to a guy's house at 10 p.m. the first night and then sleep with him?
Yes.
What gave you that mentality?
I've done that maybe like once or twice when in college and stuff like that, and like I lied, it's not once or twice, but you feel me. And like that's not true. Like they never text you the next day, they never do anything, like they don't see you as a respectable woman. But like in the like, contrary, when you go on dates and stuff before and like actually make them get to know you, then they're more invested and they want to spend more time with you.
What's the most challenging?
So what do you think on this song? Is that what makes you a respectable chat? Is that what makes you a respectable woman? Making sure that man spends some money and time on you first?
She was starting to get there, and then she just completely destroyed herself, man. I tell you, Bill. Oh my lord. Listen, if there's some truth in lyrics I've heard before, it's
Patrick is like, oh my gosh.
I know, right? It's from Belle Biv DeVoe. Never trust a big butt and a smile. That girl is poison. for the older heads, y'all know that song.
Jeez, Andre. All right.
No, but it's like true, right? Like talking about all this stuff in investing, it's like she started to go into the right path.
I mean, when I first saw this video, I'm like, okay, I'm vibing,
Yeah,
and then
man,
I'm no. But you know, the last thing that I wanted to touch on is, you know, for those men that are actually single, that are ready. You know, you're not going to find a godly woman out at the clubs, you know,
Nope.
out in the streets. Like, that's
Nope.
not where you're going to find, you know, the woman that God has for you. You have to also be willing to put yourself in places where you can actually meet a woman, too. I mean, you know, Rafi just touched on it. Like, churches are filled with women, right? Like, I'll give you an example.
The majority is about 60 to 70% of women usually in the churches. And the men that are there, it's a lot less. So if you're really having trouble finding a woman, you just need to go to the place where there's more women.
Dude, so funny story before we end. So for me, there was a time where I was like, God, I'm done with all this dating nonsense. Like, I need you to prep me. I went on my knees. I think I even cried, and I was just like, dude, like, I don't want to date anymore. Like, the next woman that you bring to my life, like, that has to be it. Like, I'm just gonna work on myself. And I mean, it was a beautiful time in my life, to be honest. Like, I was just dedicated to the word. I was dedicated to my church. Like, it was great. I remember, like, I'm like, yo, like, I'm getting all dressed up, and I'm just getting dressed up because I'm gonna go worship God. Like, it was an amazing time. But I say all this to say that, you know, and I even talked to pastors, and I took trainings, and I took mentorship. And when I felt like I was ready, one of the first things that I did was that there wasn't anyone that I was interested in at my church. And I remembered this one pastor that went to preach at my church, and I found out what church, you know, he was from, or where he was, you know, pastoring, and I actually went to that church. Long story short, I went to like their youth day and whatnot. Long story short, that's where I ended up meeting my wife. You know, like, I put myself, number one, I worked on myself, making sure that I was ready to be the husband that she needed to be. But two, I put myself in the situation where I would meet that woman that God had for me.
And so to address Hans's question, because I mean Hans's comment, because I think this is a concern too with a lot of men. You know, but it's creepy going to random churches.
You gotta just up your game, bro.
I know, right? I mean, I hate to say this, but this is kind of, I'm gonna pull a note from the Red Pill community, right? Developing skills that allow you to be more effective and to help. If you are great with social media and you see a church that is struggling with social media, what is to stop you to donate a little bit of time to help that church and possibly meet somebody over there? If you are a musician and you are just wasting your talents away and you're single, Fam, you have no idea how many churches there are that need musicians. If you have the ability to teach the word of God and you have a church close by you that is within your same belief, like we can set up a whole live just on that, on different tips and techniques of things that you can do that will put you in situations that will actually show you that, oh, there's a lot more women around here that are close to my age that I can spit game to. And you don't have to do the whole runaround of, yo, let me talk to this person so they can introduce me. Like, you can put yourself in that position. But like how Manny said, first things first is you got to be ready. Because if you going out to fish and you ain't got no bait, you ain't going to catch nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, when it comes to, you got to find, church activities, that match whatever, range you're in with what you're looking for. And I mean, I get it. Like, I think you have to be wise. You have to be careful.
Yep.
You don't want to be a creep where like you're going to events and you're hitting on, every single woman that they're out there.
Fellas, there is such a thing as
events.
Christian hoe energy. All right,
But-
let's not reciprocate that. All right.
But what are, like, let's say you have because if, like, for example, Hans, let's say he's already in a church, right?
Yep.
I'm sure he goes to a church or whatever. He's not interested from anybody within that church. Then how does he, like, what are some concrete examples that he could do today to try to find a woman, maybe in another church or somewhere else?
All right. So I think the biggest thing would be kind of just like that, right? Like, take a look, Hans, or anybody else really, at your skills and see what churches are around you, right? Like, for example, so again, Manny and I, we came.
You might need to leave your church for a little bit, buddy. Miss some Sundays, miss some
Legit.
Fridays.
Legit. Listen, let me actually say this real quick, because this is something I've seen online. You are not going to be cursed if you go visit another church for a little bit. Obviously, right? If you go to a place, you want to make sure similar ideas, you guys agree and stuff like that. Hans, you asked the question. This is why we're using you as the example, right? But like, if you can go to a sister church that maybe needs help or something like that,
Or any person, like,
Yeah.
it's not just you, Hans. It's anybody that
or maybe
is
you
looking.
maybe you meet somebody at a youth event. Like, for example, I know a lot of people within my city just because I used to go to youth events all the time. I was able to meet with a lot of people. So if I was single and I needed, if I was in this position, I would hit up a lot of my friends and be like, yo, do you guys need help with this? Is there anything going on? Who can I talk to? Because with there being such a huge influx of women being more in churches than men, and this is not because Christianity is a female religion, nothing like that. It's just, it takes a real man to really follow God, and we got a lot of guys pulling back. When you get involved and help out those people in whatever ministries that they need help with, you're going to naturally be in contact with more women.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying to like we're not using God or church for this, but I mean, at the same time, like, you're not gonna meet somebody if you're not out there and putting yourself out there and searching, for people. And I think that, to be honest, there's such a lack of men and men leadership in a lot of these churches that I think that if you show up somewhere offering something of value, I think somebody's gonna notice you. You're gonna get noticed. And believe me, I mean, it happens even in our church. There are plenty of women that are single and are just waiting for that right guy to show up. So if you go into a church, you got your stuff put together, you're a righteous man, you're gonna get noticed by somebody. You know what I mean?
Here's a quick story of how I met my wife.
All right, make it 2 seconds. 'Cause we
2
gotta go.
seconds, I know. I had a friend of mine hit me up. Hey, we need some guys that can sing. I go to this specific church, which happens to be our current church now, and I met my wife. And I was singing with the men and stuff like that. It was a group of maybe 10 or 12 people singing with 2 guys. The rest is history. I'm married now 7 years, with a 2-year-old now. Just from me saying, hey, I'm going to go help out this church that I don't really know.
But I think you also, because you got to have some game as well, because
absolutely.
part of having that game is like not coming off as creepy. Like,
Nope.
When I showed up, I thought that everybody had their youth meetings on a Friday. The church that I visited, where my wife was, had theirs every other week. I just happened to show up on the day where nobody. It was closed down basically. I took the number of the church. I called the church and left a voicemail, and I said that I was looking for, youth activities or something in the church. Anyways, the next day, my wife to be calls me, and we talked, and it was weird. Like we talked like we had known each other. She left me a voicemail actually. And then the next day I called her on my way to the gym because I didn't know who this person was gonna be, so I needed an excuse, in case it was kind of weird to just close and be like, okay, I'm good, thank you for the information. I give her a call on my way, and the conversation went very smooth, and ultimately I'm, oh hey, I gotta go, I'm stepping into the gym, and then after that I went to the youth event, and I did my thing, and the rest is history. But like, if she would have called and I was like dry and I wasn't like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like approachable, and I wasn't engaging, and I didn't necessarily flirt with her, but I didn't make it awkward. And I think that part of having those conversations as you're visiting churches and all these things, like you gotta be able to make that other person feel comfortable, and you gotta work on that. That's part of the process. And I mean, part of it is you may be horrible at first, but every time you try, you'll get a little better and get some feedback from other people too.
Failure is not a bad thing. It's an opportunity to learn. And remember, YouTube is a whole university itself.
Facts.
So if you need to learn how to talk to people, dude, YouTube it up. Like,
what is it? Man, there's a stupid channel like Charisma University or something like that.
But it's like, it's okay with failing. That's another thing. As a man, you have to be able to accept failure, move on with it, because I didn't get my wife on the first go.
You gotta have
I
Christian games,
failed.
says Rafi.
Yeah, you do. I completely failed the first time, and it took me a little bit to get my wife. It wasn't that easy, and that's the thing. This is not going to be a, hey, walk in the park, I'm just going to meet my wife, God is going to tell me, and I'm going to tell her that God told me that she's the one, and that's it, right?
Don't be a super Christian either. Like throwing Bible verses every 3 seconds.
I know,
like, all right.
Make it thing, but it's like, it's just about being willing to put in the hard work, and that's really what we're just trying to say at the end of the day. Men, be willing to put in the hard work. Plain and simple. Nothing in life is going to be easy. God told Adam that he has to work the land to get the fruit off of it, and that applies to us in every single thing.
Andre had to put in some work.
I put in some work.
Work pays off.
Yes, it does.
Anyways, guys, so this was the live stream. Hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure to tell people we are trying to have this every Monday at 9.
Yep.
God willing. Anderson has to travel here and there, so I may have to do some on my own or have guest speakers. But we're trying to do this every Monday, have some type of Bible study / conversation. Like, I'm not, like I told Andy before, like, I'm not trying to have this, like, super Christian channel. Like, I think there's plenty of those out there where you can have a ton of scriptures thrown at you. It just, this is a place to chill, have some good conversations, learn a couple of things, and have it be a place where people feel like they just can come, relax, have us in the background, and just have a good time. So
listen, guys, again, like the video so that way you get to see more of our content coming up. Subscribe to the channel, share it to other people, right? Because if you tell somebody, hey, look,
send a text to at least one person with the link.
I know, right?
God is watching.
Tell them, hey, look at these 2 guys talking about anime in the Bible. Who would think, right?
Yeah, tell them, look at this white and black guy making an Oreo. Talking
2
about
Dominicans
Jesus.
here, yo. But no, seriously, like, help us as we reach out over to others, because this is one form of ministry, super cliche, right? But maybe the way that you can help introduce other people to the Word of God is through anime. And so send this off. Don't let this be just something you keep for yourself.
There are some Christians that will call us demonizers,
Oh, 100%. But I mean, dude, there's Christians that would call our church demonizers and vice versa, right? This is not a battle of theology or what denomination you're a part of. This is just 2 dudes that grew up with anime, discussing anime, and also how we see God interjecting into things, all right? Because that's
right.
how it is with everything else in life. We can go down the rabbit hole as to should we celebrate Christmas, should we not, Thanksgiving.
We can do that depending on
depending on
what we find material that we can get.
Exactly, but it's
if people are interested.
Our job is just that, interjecting Christ into everything that we do, and sometimes it's just even through a simple conversation.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, and as always, just want to remind you that we must persevere. Peace.